Welcome to the Bold SLP podcast. We are so happy that you're here and can't wait to share with you all of the amazing conversations we've been having.
We are the co-founders of the Bold SLP Collective, and we are also your hosts, Lisa, Desi, and myself, Ingrid. Each of us has a variety of experiences in all things bilingual and bimodal speech-language pathology. You'll get to know us pretty well on here.
We started this podcast to share our lived experiences, but also because we want to bring advocacy and cultural humility to the forefront of every speech therapy conversation. We hope that you'll join us each week, and we hope that you enjoy this episode.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Bold SLP podcast with Ingrid and myself, Lisa, and we have a guest, Melissa.
Hi.
Hi, Melissa.
Am I saying that right?
Yes, so I'll say it the Egyptian way. It's Farkouh.
Cool. Beautiful.
Cool.
So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but I just want to say that all of us in Quebec, we know you as the leading voice in bilingualism in the speech therapy world. So very, very excited to have you. So yes, please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, girls, for having me. I'm excited to be on today. I wouldn't say that I'm the leading voice, but thank you. That's very nice. So, my name is Melissa Farkouh, like I was saying before. So in Egyptian, you pronounce the H. I've been in SLP for 11 years. I completed my master's at McGill. And when I started my career, I did a whole lot of everything. I couldn't decide what I wanted to do. I had done an internship in neuro, rehab. I was working a bit in neuro, and then I was working with peds, just on speech and language. And eventually after a couple of years, I got pregnant. And after I had my son, I had a position at a hospital then. So I moved from neuro to acute and short-term healthcare hospital. So I was still working with adults then and doing some peds. And then I eventually stopped working for the peds department where I was working. So I was my schedule was split half-half, and I decided to start start working for myself, like 2 days a week. And I kept a position that I had at the hospital, working in acute and short-term care with adults. And I always knew I wanted to work with children. And that was really what got me stimulated. I just loved it so much. And I just quickly moved to private practice because I wanted flexibility, and I wanted to be able to do things my way and have my own schedule. And I mean, it kind of doesn't work out that way, but still I have that flexibility now. But along the years, as I was working privately and building up caseload, I mean, whatever comes through the door, right? But my interest really grew as a bilingual, bicultural Egyptian second generation mom and SLP. Yeah. So I started privately soon after I had my son, kind of subcontracting 2 days a week, but that wasn't working out for me either, because it wasn't under my terms. Like I was taking contracts, I was trying to build up, my private practice. And then eventually I just over a couple of years, I went fully private. And then throughout the years that followed, as a mom, and then I became a mom for a second time, we were raising our kids bilingually. We speak mostly English at home. My husband is Italian, and I'm Egyptian. We're both second generation from our parents who came here. And I did try a lot to speak to my kids in Arabic when I was younger, but the idea that I didn't have enough vocabulary, I really had those basic communication skills where I could say little sentences, I could ask little questions and, name some vocabulary. Anyways, so that whole notion of giving that language to my kids was always there. I've always wanted to pass down that culture. I feel like it's being lost from generation to generation, being in Canada. And And then there's French in the community as well. So we've always been raising them bilingually, French, English, but really we speak English at home. And then as an SLP, watching my kids grow, and then being with my clients who I'm mostly now working with 0 to 6-year-olds. A little bit of school age too, but mostly pre-K. And, just dealing with over here, we were speaking privately before, Ingrid and I, but over here in Quebec, in Canada, it's very diverse, very multicultural, depending on the area though. So some areas can be predominantly, Franco-Canadians or Anglophone Canadians, and then you can have like a melting pot when you're in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, where it's like you'll get just a beautiful mix of like cultures and languages. We have like Little Italy and Little India and you have all these little pockets, Chinatown, where you're going to go and find all these like rich cultural languages and experiences. Anyway, sorry, I'm deviating, but all this to say is that I was always interested in languages in general. I guess that's what brought me to be an SLP. I always wanted to work with children. And then over the years, I just developed this growing like desire to be more and more, adept and learning about culture and language and how they interact and how it's having an impact on the children that we see and how we can help these families more, and how to relate to families that I don't necessarily like know where they're coming from. And, I've dealt with situations where I had expectations or I had, pre-imposed thoughts of what I was expecting from this child or where I thought this child should be. And the family saying to me, like, listen, we don't do this in my country. This is not go. We don't have professionals like you, and kids don't play like that, or we don't interact that way. And so my kid is normal. And I was like, yeah, okay, I need to like learn more about this. So anyways.
Yeah, that's literally what I wanted to ask you about, because you've done so much research on like the connections with culture and language. Yeah. And then you have like all these like bilingual courses that you're writing. So was there like a specific moment that made you think I need to dive deeper into this?
I mean, specifically, I can't pinpoint one moment. I would say it's a culmination of a lot of these situations where I found myself in, not always with families, sometimes also with educators or daycare directors. So a little bit more about what I do now. I have my private practice. And so in the last few years, I have daycares that I regularly go to. They're the same daycares that I've been going to for, I want to say, at least 6 years. I've built relationships with these daycares, the personnel that's there, the educators, the people running the daycares, and I've stayed with them because we've just meshed so well and we've put into place a lot of things. And some of them are in neighborhoods that are, less fortunate than others. And so we have a lot of kids that are in need, a lot of like monoparental families. And so I'm also coming face to face, day to day. So I think this is where the turning point is going into all these different daycares in different neighborhoods and seeing really a diversity, because in my office, it's biased. It's only the families that could afford to come and see me privately.
Right.
When I go to the daycares, it's the daycares who pay me. So I'm able to see a large diversity of families, cultures, languages, families coming from all kinds of places. Mm-hmm. I've had families from China, families from Central Africa. I've had Indian, Sri Lankan. I've had I've had like all kinds of Filipino, just to name a few, but like I can go on and on and on about all the cultures and languages that I've come across. And they're all very enriching experiences, because I want to always think about how I can relate to these families if they're coming sometimes if they're not open necessarily to the service that they're receiving, because often it's the daycare that kind of is doing that first touch point with the families. And so I need to come in there and let them know that we're in it together. And so how can I make it so that we're like holding hands in a way? I know it sounds cheesy, but I'm like, I want to like hold hands. I'm a hugger. So I like to connect with people, and that's me as a person. So connecting with the families that I work with is the most important, connecting with the kids. And so how do I do that? Is learning more about them, letting them speak to me about their needs and their views and what it is that they're expecting from me too. Like, do you know what I'm here for? How can we help?
We were talking in another podcast, I can't remember which one, about just like kind of the roots of speech therapy being rooted in ableism and different kind of problematic things. And so I can understand families who are not from here questioning everything and wondering like, what kind of service is my little one going to get? And I don't know if we've had anyone, Ingrid, on the podcast who worked in daycares.
No.
We talked a lot about medical settings, school settings. So this is great. Can you, I mean, I didn't ask you this in advance, sorry, to put you on the spot, but can you give us maybe an example of how you were able to explain to a family who really didn't know anything about speech and is not from here, like what you're going to be doing and how you're going to help their child communicate?
That's a good question. I mean, I always start by asking them. I'm just thinking of a mom that I met recently who came here, and I asked her, like, how has it been for you to come to our country? This is not something that I've asked always in the past. And I thought, I see that they've been new here. They've kind of come back and forth between their country and Canada. I'm trying to remember exactly where they're from. It'll come back to me. And I asked the mom, first of all, how has it been for her to come to Montreal? Like, we were in Montreal. And she told me from the get-go, it's been tough. She has had a hard time getting around, figuring out this, the buses and transportation, finding a doctor. And then, we get into the conversation, and I'm doing the assessment. So we're talking about her child, and she's voicing some concerns, definitely. And so I asked her, I said, well, back home, do you guys have speech pathologists? And she said, no, we don't. And I said, well, do you know, and I'm asking her, do you know what it is that we do? And so then I'm explaining to her that, like, the concerns that you're voicing to me, I'm here to help you with that and best support you in the way that you're already interacting with your child. So then we talk about, their daily habits, their routines, their play. What does play look like for her? Do they play? And a lot of families, even I can think of my like grandparents, and how we connect is through like food and cooking, kitchen. A lot of families will tell me, my kid likes to come in the kitchen. They like to get in there with me. So we'll talk about how language, vocabulary, and just interacting and communicating can be developed through these routines that already are a part of their day-to-day. Because then a lot of these families also who have just immigrated are feeling overwhelmed by all of the things aforementioned. And yeah, so I guess it just depends how, I guess the attitude, like what I'm getting, what I'm feeling as a vibe, I'm going to kind of go off of that and see how I can best explain my role, and if they're good with that, or what they're expecting from me, or what do they think I'm there for, or what I can do and can't do.
I love that mention of food too, because we talk about a lot of our background and our culture is very community based and doing things together, and it could be so isolating coming here, not really speaking the language, and then not having a community. And so that could really play a part in your child's language skills, and just them seeing it like a quieter household and like very different. But yeah, re-explaining our roles and what we do is a big one, because I think sometimes we jump in to try to like fix the problem or whatever, or like get them to talk more without understanding where they came from. But sorry, did you want to say something else about that?
I just wanted to add that in really kind of grasping that this mom, I kind of had a feeling, I didn't know she was going to tell me that she was really struggling. But then when she talked to me about our medical system, well, that's all kind of tied to, like, I'm first line. So I'm the first kind of healthcare professional that they're seeing. And so I thought, first things first, not only with this family, but many other families, I think we have a role to play in supporting families, also helping them understand, especially for new immigrants or refugees or whatever the situation may be, someone who's not born in Canada, helping them too with the healthcare system, explaining to them a little bit how it works, and also sympathizing with them, because it is hard to get around. I said to her, I have a hard time, so I can understand that you're having a hard time finding a doctor, finding, a pediatrician. And then it's like, I'm going to hold your hand along the way, and I'm going to help. If this is what you want and you want to go forward, well, I'm going to help you in the next steps and find resources for you as well. So I think that's a big part that I can play, at least in being in the daycares, in helping them kind of go forward and not having to wait until they've entered school and then kind of being like, oh, well, how come no one helped me before this? They didn't have a doctor.
Yeah. I was going to say, it sounds a lot like how early intervention works here at times, where sometimes the family works and they have created a family service plan, but the therapist is only able to go see the child while they're in daycare or with a caregiver. And you have to figure out how to integrate all of those pieces. I remember when I was doing early intervention, I had some sessions with a caregiver, some sessions with the mom, even like at 7 at night when she got home later and was like starting dinner, just so that mom could see, like, maybe one session in the month was with mom, and then the other sessions were at the caregiver during the day. And yeah, same. You have to meet them where they're at. And I think, Melissa, you say it all chill, like, oh, I just asked her this, and do you play? And I don't think you realize how much, like, your experiences and what you know about cultural competence, how much that goes into making those questions in that way, instead of like a judgy, like, tell me how many minutes a day do you play on the floor? Right. You were like, how do you play? Do you play? Making it already okay that if they don't play, it's okay. And I think that that's a testament to like what you bring to what you do, just like not knowing you at all, like this being our first meeting. But I'm like, I already hear you phrase things in a way that I'm like, okay, this girl, like, she gets it. Culturally, she gets it.
The hand. No one, we can see each other, but
no one can see the hand that I'm doing, but it's an approving hand.
Like a chef's kiss hand. Like she's one of us.
But yeah, all of these things that we consider, like I've been reading books to my kids from a very young age. I've always, I think that that's something that could be easy and accessible in my mind. But then when I speak to parents and families and I propose certain things to them, or I ask them if they'd be open to that, sometimes it's just not feasible, but it's okay too. So it's like, tell me what you like to do. What are your kids' interests, and how can we go from there?
Right.
I love that you support them with the really, really difficult things outside of speech therapy, like the paperwork and getting them like the funds that they need, or kind of showing them what to do, because it's a real hassle, even for us, like first, second language speakers, born in the country. It's still so much work. So to have to navigate that by yourself, it's really amazing that you can help them through that, because that's really the first step for them. And then they can get access to all kinds of things with your support.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
I just, to that idea, I just wanted to add that for the longest time, I always had that feeling like I need to do more. I need to do more. And then I had to stop and take a step back and stop focusing so much necessarily on speech and language itself and focus on what's really going to help the family in the immediate right now. And a lot of the times that's what it is, or taking the time to speak to them longer, or taking the time to explain to them where to go, or if there is funding that they can go and get, or filling out documents for them, translating documents for them. I'm not a translator. I've sometimes been able to get someone to come in, not officially any translators, unfortunately, but sometimes it's having a family member come in to help the conversation flow and help them understand all of that.
Yeah.
You've been in SLP for, you said 11 years now. Is that right?
Yeah.
So have you noticed the difference in the treatment planning and assessment of bilingual students? You must have seen, I'm assuming you've seen like a gradual change since you started and what you're doing now.
Yes, definitely. I wasn't always just working, like focusing on multilingual children that, developed over the years, but definitely I've seen a shift. I want to say that it's not happening as fast as I would like.
No.
Literally the reason for this podcast.
Yes.
What?
That's literally why we do all of this, because I think maybe we graduated around the same time. Melissa, I graduated fall of 2011.
Yeah, same.
And I was like, yay, I survived and came out. And like I was telling you before, like my community is very multilingual and everybody's like supported because we just have those three big pillars, the Spanish, the Navajo, and the English. And then we get it all figured out. And I thought everybody must be like this, right? Everybody's got really cool multicultural stuff going on and dual language programs. Especially 10 years after I graduated. And then I come on Instagram and I find out that no. Nothing has changed. Hold on.
So like asking about if there's a shift.
No, but I was just thinking how interesting that you say it's not changing as fast as I would like it to. And I didn't really notice. Then I came back to it. And to me, it feels like nothing has changed. So I like your approach much better. It's changing, but not as fast as I would like it to.
Yeah. I feel like from the point of view of the clinicians, and also like I work a lot with educators and teachers and parents, I'm coaching a lot. And so from the families, I'm still getting families coming to me and saying that they've been told to focus on the language of school and focus on, over here it's French. They're going to French school. You have to speak to them in French. They'll fall behind. Stop speaking your home language. And I can't tell you the relief on their faces when I'm like, no, don't do that. Speak your home language, please.
Yep.
For all these reasons. And I roll out the scroll. And then there's, the educators and the teachers that I'm coaching. I'm providing trainings to these people. And it's not, it's not coming from a bad place. It's just misinformation. And I feel like in the era of social media, there's still, it spreads like wildfire. Anyone can put out misinformation and it just goes all over the place. And there's still people close to me telling me, oh, he's a late talker because he's speaking 2-3 languages or is explained. I'm like, that's false. That's not that's just that big one. But then even from SLPs, I've still had, as of late, parents or other professionals telling me that they've seen a report from another professional saying that they should focus on the language of school or work on certain items that are really language-based, language-specific, like elements that aren't really going to be benefiting this child in the here and now, functionally speaking. And so it's moving slowly, but people are getting more and more
interested. They're opening up their ears and their eyes, professionals, I think, more so. And they want to get informed, and it's not moving fast enough. It's not.
I think in schools too, even though we have all the right messaging, right? We have the, support the family language and bring the dual language on and bilingual supports. At some point, the system is built to prioritize English, right? Or in Canada, to prioritize French.
100%.
And it doesn't matter how many good dual language teachers are supporting this child in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, how many good bilingual Spanish speaking SLPs are supporting this child. There comes a point where they get to the demands of school, and then they have to choose, like, silently every day school's telling you your English is not good enough and you have this disability. And they get there. I see it by the time they're in 5th grade. They get to the point where, like, I don't speak Spanish anymore.
Yeah.
And it's nothing that we did. It's just the system is built this way to prioritize one language over another. One language has power over another.
Yeah. One language only.
Yes.
That monolingual mindset.
Yep.
It's really hard to know and understand your identity, even as an adult. So kids are really just trying to navigate, like, who am I, and what part of me is okay, and like what part of me is not okay or not accepted. And I love that I'm really collaborating with professionals who are just empowering every identity of a child, like as this whole, what you do at home and what you do at school, and those are all just as important as each other. It's not, I don't know where like school and the language of school like took precedence over every single thing, and your entire heritage and your entire ancestry just wiped out because you're supposed to speak French or English in the US.
Yeah, speak a certain way too, because your dialect is not correct.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
that's a whole other topic, Ingrid. We can't go there right now.
I know. It's
Yeah.
not, yeah.
No, a lot of things are popping up into my head, but I'm providing trainings now to SLPs. I've been working on trainings for the last couple of years, putting together. The first one that I put together was for educators, teachers, parents on bilingualism, like how to effectively just stimulate a multilingual child, how to love both languages, how to nurture both. When I say both, I mean 2 or more.
Yeah.
So I'm using the word bilingual loosely here as bi or multilingual. And then eventually I put together a small workshop for speech pathologists. And then I put together a bigger workshop for speech pathologists. And now I'm making it even bigger because I see that there's a need. When I get phone calls for a child who didn't receive any services because the SLP didn't speak English, and I'm one of the few who speaks French and English, I'm like, but why are the other SLPs not feeling? And this is only for an English child. Imagine for a child whose home language is completely different, another, not a majority language in Canada.
Right.
Have French and English. I'm like, so all these kids are not receiving appropriate services. They're kind of being left behind. There's no early intervention happening. So that is frustrating. And then, because the SLPs are feeling like they don't know what to do, like they don't know where to start. And so coming back to the whole shift, has there been a shift? Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
So
does your course talk about where an SLP can start if they're getting a family who speaks neither English nor French? Is that part of that?
Yeah, sort of. So I talk about just how, like, all the theoretical stuff on how like language develops with the different types of bilingualism, all the factors that come into play with multilingualism, and how important it is to consider all of these factors. So like a really good ethno-linguistic interview with parents. And okay, so what if the parents don't speak our language? So yeah, I have a huge part on all of that, but like there's a whole intro on like just all definitions and how these impact language development, and how we're expecting all these monolingual things, but it doesn't, it's so heterogeneous from child to child, and time of exposure, age of exposure, social context, all these different factors. So I talk very in depth about all of those things and how to collect that information.
Right.
So that is like a big basis of it. And then like how to work with an interpreter, which I haven't had the chance to do a lot of, but I've done a lot of research on it. And then there's the question of access to interpreters. Okay, so then what else can we do? Do we have access to a family member? I know, you know, best practice says XYZ, but you know, it's the real world. So we do the best that we can with what we have. And then I talk about just how we can adapt our tests. I just covered a lot of literature, dynamic assessment. I'm delving more and more into dynamic assessment. I think this is eventually going to be a whole training all on its own. I'm myself still developing those skills. I don't feel super comfortable with dynamic assessment. I want to do it all the time with any child because it's providing so much more information. But I feel like SLPs, especially school age, we're talking about school-based SLPs and academic language. I feel like there's those like, what do you call them? Like the
blinders.
They're like, the blinders are on and it's like they can't see outside of that school box because they're in the school setting. So they're trying to consider homes, but they don't have access to parents all the time and they're not sure how to go about it. So I'm trying to provide a framework or at least things that are accessible and easy-ish that they can start with, you know, like baby steps. Like, so I provide a lot of different things that they could be integrating. They don't have to do everything, but I really am going through it A to Z with them. Yeah, but it's tough. It's tough because that academic language, it's so like there.
Yeah, it's very limiting to only teach academic language, especially if our kids are not going to end up in a field that school sometimes primes them for.
I don't know if it's different in Canada, but we have functional goals here. Do you guys not have that?
Functional goals?
Yeah.
Outside of just the academic language?
Yeah.
Yeah. We have them.
I mean, I have the option of doing one or both.
Yeah.
I can't just do functional. Like you said, everything in school has to be academic, driven by academic need and academic achievement. Right. But there's always room for that functional piece.
Yeah.
And I love what you're saying about dynamic assessment. I'm obsessed. I've been doing it forever. And I think you've been doing it longer than you think too. You just haven't been giving yourself credit for it. Just from hearing you talk about how you do things. But I was going to say for your training for the educators, the one thing I would add that helped me the most was advocating for the time. Because if you have the time to do these evaluations this way, to dynamically assess, to do ethnographic interviews, to access the families are there. They're willing, they're ready. Most of them are willing and ready to support you in any way. The teachers are there, willing and ready. It's just our therapists don't always are given the correct amount of time on their workload. But once I got that balance right, I was so that was like my year 3. Mm-hmm. It's whenever I really like took off with, my reports are going to look a lot different than other people's. And I have to constantly be explaining myself and why what I'm doing is taking more time on the back end, but giving me so much more information, like you said.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's a main concern for everyone is like, okay, they want to know specifically, like, you know, very, very type A, like they need stats. They want to know how many hours is it going to take, what exactly to do. And I'm like, I can't tell you what exactly to do.
It depends.
Exactly. It's really case by case. And you have to gather all this information and that's going to help you balance between functional, academic, and provide a more well-rounded intervention where families still can support even if they're not speaking the school language and they still feel like they're involved in there. But yeah, I'm not in the school setting, so I feel like a lot of them have said, and I think I've said to advocate for that time, but they're
right, because for an administrator they see the same ID number for a monolingual English speaker than for a bilingual Spanish speaker who stutters and has dyslexia or whatever, you know, that just counts as the same kid. But that eval it is
Not the same.
triple the time for a child who has more in-depth needs and multilingual, multicultural needs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's very hard to explain when you assess dynamically as well, because with the standardized tests, you can come out with like pages and pages and pages of evaluation reporting, even if it's all mumbo jumbo to parents. And then with the dynamic assessment, you're doing it more thoroughly, but you're not writing a million things because you're keeping the parent in mind and how much they can digest. And a lot of it is in conversation and in modeling versus all that write up. So it's hard sometimes to sell to management and to schools that like this little sheet of paper actually took me 8 weeks because I really developed a bond with the family and the child. And I got the real picture here. Or a better picture and profile. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, I like that. You see, like I'm missing that aspect. I have that flexibility. I can adjust myself as I choose to, because it's on my own time. It's on my own watch. I don't have anyone to answer to, and that's also partly why I wanted to be working privately, to have that flexibility. But
you have a great boss.
The best. So I'm happy you brought up the private practice because I wanted to end with that a little bit about your private practice. And you are exclusively private now. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
I've
So
been for years.
For how long?
So I started when my son was born, and then I think after I had my daughter, so my daughter's 6, so 6 years now. After I had my daughter, I officially like quit. I still had that position at the hospital. I was kind of on like double back to back. I had like my mat leave, and then I was allowed to take a sabbatical, and then I was giving birth again. Oh, wow. 2.5 years after. So I tacked on a second mat. I don't know. It was like that security cushion to keep that position. But I was really thriving in private practice. And I mean, now I have like my social media that I've always wanted to do, that I've like delved into like 100%, so that we could spread the word faster and let people give out that information and have people, you know, consuming this correct information and like trying to help as many people as I can, I guess.
So do you feel more connected to your families as a private practice owner versus when you worked at the hospitals?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Day and night. There's no
Would you advise SLPs to go into private practice, or partially private or full private? Like what do you think?
Honest truth?
Honest truth, please. Be bold.
Okay. I don't think it's for everyone.
Okay.
I don't think it's for everyone. I don't think everyone likes to have to manage all of the extra that comes with. I don't think everyone has it in them to want to deal with the admin stuff, the phone calls, the emails, even though when you really think about it, you're kind of already doing that anyways. So yeah, I don't think it's for everyone. I definitely think that it could round out nicely if you're working full-time or part-time in the public sector, because personally, I was not fulfilled. I could never see myself being fulfilled in a public health sector job. But that's just me. I always need stimuli. I can't stay still and stay doing the same thing. Once I start to fall into a routine, I need something new. I'm starting a new project. I'm doing more social media. I'm, putting a training together. But that's how I am. So I think it's an individual preference, but definitely I love working privately, and I would never turn back.
I agree. I feel your whole being is like a dynamic person, just like dipping in here and there and just like thriving in all of it. I never even thought about, I guess because I'm so pro like private practice, I never think about like the downside. The admin stuff, for me personally, I feel there are so many less miscommunications in private practice because when you're in these big teams and big government jobs, it's always like you're relying on one person to do the next thing. And like sometimes it's like a little consent form that I'm missing, and this kid has been like on the list for weeks. Whereas in private practice, I'm just like, hey mom, can we do this? Thanks. Okay, bye. And I've never had consent issues, obviously in private, the family brings the child. But that was a big one to me, that so many barriers were broken once I got into private. But it is very true, because I don't mind the admin. I don't mind any of that, because I have connections with these families so quickly that it feels like I'm working for like my community, you know?
But what about the insurance too? That also sometimes for people like to know that they have like their pension fund and their insurance.
Yeah, so I don't know much about that. I'm gonna have to dive deeper into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or me, who I'm like allergic to money.
Oh my goodness.
I hate it. I'm still trying to unlearn all that. Like, you don't talk about money, you don't deal with money. Unlearning it.
Yeah, unlearn it, because that whole taboo around like we don't share our salaries, because the superiors don't want other people to know that maybe you're getting underpaid versus your colleague.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
we know that story.
So we don't want to, we really don't want to make it taboo. And I mean, with the rise of Instagram, people have been so open and vulnerable. It's been wonderful.
I love seeing like the new grads who are like, I'm going to send this anonymous form. Can y'all please tell me how much money you're making in this state?
Mm-hmm.
So that they know what to accept whenever they start getting their offers.
Yeah.
And people do go in there and respond. Like, you can see it's totally anonymous, but it's like a spreadsheet. And it's just like, you don't know who did what. And
I get non-anonymous.
Like,
I get DMs from current graduate students asking me, like, what should I ask for my first year pay? Like, it's so bold, and I love it, because we really didn't know any better when we graduated. We just took it for granted that speech therapists do well. Some do. The ones that
I took it way
themselves.
for granted. I did not do well my first year. Let me tell you.
Me neither. The times I was working in for someone else's private practice, I did better than when I was working for the government, but still severely underpaid everywhere, all over the place, until I talked to other people. So I am very grateful for the community, for you, Melissa, for you, Ingrid, like, who have always been open about these things, because we just would never know.
Yep. We would.
I think also like it's a predominantly female profession. Sorry, I'm losing my words tonight. You understood what I'm saying. It's predominantly females who work in our profession. And I think there's, on top of just money being a taboo, it's like taboo for women to speak about money. And, we can get into that more, but definitely. But I mean, being in private practice also offers that ability to, bill more per hour, I like working smarter, not harder. So that's my motto.
Okay, that takes us into your last word.
Is that your last word?
That's my last word. Work smarter, not harder.
Work smarter, not harder. I love it. Do you have one, Ingrid? I'm still thinking.
Yeah, I have one.
Okay, go ahead.
Mine is going to be a little, it's deliberate. I feel like what I've heard from Melissa, like her deliberate attack to like serving these families, and then deliberately, moving into being a businesswoman. And it seems like everything is very, very intentional. That could be another word. And I think we all should be more like that about our own practice. Like, how do we want to do our practice? And I feel like Melissa didn't let anybody tell her how to be an SLP.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's what the vibe. I'm like, very deliberate person. Just intentional. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm thinking of the word share. Just sharing in general, sharing the wealth of knowledge, sharing the pay scales. Melissa, literally, I met her on Instagram. Well, I just loved all of her reels, but I loved her hair. You can't see her hair, but it's curly and it's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
And she shared with me some like tips on how to take care of curly hair. Like that's like how we became friends.
Yeah.
So just sharing all of it.
Sharing.
Sharing is caring. Thank you so much for being here, Melissa. This is great.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Hi, before we let you go, we wanted to share with you something that we've been working on behind the scenes. It's a really exciting collaboration with SLP Nerdcast. We are creating a 4-week grad credit course with them to be released for the summer of 2023. All of us 3 together are working on this course that means so much to us. It'll be solutions and strategies to prevent harm in bilingual and multicultural evaluations. It's going to be so great, and we are so thrilled to be working on it. We can't share it with you yet, but it's ready for pre-order. So if you want to check it out, go to our bio on Instagram or to our website. Thank you for listening and supporting the Bold SLP Collective. You can find a closed caption version of this podcast on our YouTube channel. We will also have show notes on our website. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate it if you do all the podcast things. Follow, subscribe, download, and review. And don't forget, we love hearing from you, so connect with us on Instagram at the Bold SLP Collective. Stay bold and humble. See you next time.